is a communist revolution. I say that we had Marxist cultural revolution in this country for a long time, but this time in Minneapolis, it is communist insurrection.
Caring for people was at the core of who he was. He was incapable of causing harm. Alex carried patience, compassion, and calm as a steady light within him. Even at the very end, that light was there. I recognized his familiar stillness and signature calm composure.
Terrorizing communities. People dying, quite literally now dying. We said people will die. People are dying.
It's a copycat of the Nazis.
We are dead serious. She needs to be put on ice permanently. And by the way, she's not the only one.
2 centuries apart, the arguments sound strangely familiar. During the Civil War, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that enslaved people and rebelling states were free. It was a moral and constitutional line in the sand, yet many states openly defied it. They claimed states' rights. They warned of economic collapse. They argued that enforcing federal law would destroy social order. In practice, what they were defending was a system built on ignoring the humanity of others, and their defiance prolonged injustice. Today we see echoes of that resistance in the fight to shield people who are in the country illegally from federal immigration law. Supporters often frame this as compassion, local control, or resistance to federal overreach. But the parallel lies not in the people themselves, who are the human beings deserving dignity, but in the political posture, states and cities asserting the right to nullify federal law when it conflicts with their preferred morale or economic outcomes. Then as now, selective obedience to federal authority was justified as righteousness. Then as now, critics were told that enforcing the law was cruel, dangerous, or unworkable. And then, as now, defiance created legal chaos, different rules depending on geography, and justice depending on your zip code, or better yet, your class of citizenship. History teaches us that moral progress does not come from ignoring law, but changing it openly and honestly. The Emancipation Proclamation was controversial, imperfect, and resisted, but history remembers those who enforced it, not those who obstructed it. If we believe today's immigration laws are unjust, the answer is reform, not nullification. Defying the law may feel virtuous in the moment, but history has a way of judging defiance harshly when it replaces principle with convenience.
Explained in under 2 minutes. 1. Flood the country with untold millions of illegals by land, sea, and air from all over the world, enough to eclipse the populations of 36 individual U.S. states so far. 2. Prioritize the needs of these millions of non-citizens over the needs of the American citizen, with free flights, buses, hotels, meals, and phones, ensuring their loyalty to the political party that imported them. 3. Keep them in the country at all costs, even when they commit violent crime like murder and rape. Attack the language used to describe the criminals, as opposed to the criminals themselves. Slander critics as racist. 4. Ensure their privileges are made irrevocable with city and state sanctuary laws that act as population magnets. Codify permanent status and ensure non-cooperation with ICE. 5. Count the non-citizens in the census that will determine congressional apportionment in the House of Representatives. As of now, that would equal 13 extra congressional districts, a tremendous amount of electoral power. 6. Wage a massive, heavily funded lawfare campaign to change state voting laws that legalize mass mail-in ballots, no signature verification, and no proof of citizenship requirements, making it nearly impossible to prove voter fraud. 7. Lock in the permanent voting majority with campaign promises of lavish benefits and permanent privileges, enshrining generational fealty to the Democrat Party. 8. Win elections. 9. Entrenched single-party rule has been achieved. The best part? Your tax dollars are paying for it.
The money, and we followed it to the top of what we call the protest industrial complex, Riot Inc., and we found a network of NGOs. It's not just the Soros network, the Open Society network, it's other funding networks. the Arabella Funding Network, the Tides Funding Network, Neville Roy Singham and his network, Foreign Cash. And it's also big left-wing funders. Some of them are not citizens of this country. Mr. Hans-Jörg Wyss of Switzerland. They're pouring money into this entire ecosystem. And so I want to share 3 money facts with you about what we call Riot Inc. Number one, like any corporation, Riot Inc. has many divisions. It doesn't just have the Antifa boots on the ground division. It has PR divisions. It has marketing divisions. It has a very well-funded legal division to get these boots on the ground back on the streets as quickly as possible. But it does have those investors that I mentioned. Number two, we have identified dozens of radical organizations, not just the decentralized Antifa organizations, but dozens of radical organizations that have received more than $100 million from the Riot Inc. investors. These would be the lawyer groups. These would be the groups that advocate for calling good, honest Americans fascists, et cetera. And then 3, I think the most shocking thing is that we have found that more than $100 million in U.S. taxpayer funding has flowed into these funding networks, including at least $4 million to these very groups themselves, not just Antifa types, but there was an event in Atlanta called Stop Cop City. Over 60 rioters were charged with domestic terrorism. These groups received money for that from both the billionaire class as well as taxpayer money. So one other thing, this money helps fund the decentralized crowdfunding platforms. These are ways that Antifa, the John Brown Gun Club of Elm Fork, which had links to that attack on the ICE facility, the Socialist Rifle Association, and just because they don't have LLCs or EIN numbers doesn't mean they can't get paid. Some of these funding platforms, crowdfunding platforms, are funded by this network that we call Riot Inc.
No question there's an international component to it, and China's involved. There's an organization linked to the CCP in China called the Center for the Study of Marxist Parties in Foreign Countries. And what they do is they track these political activities, and they've been running articles, analyses on their website in China, which is restricted, talking about color revolutions in the United States and how it might happen. They cover groups like the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They cover groups like the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, both who are neck deep in this action in Minneapolis and have been involved in many other protests. The Freedom Road Socialist Organization has pledged its allegiance to the CCP. They have fraternal party ties, which means they're very close. And the political director of that party, Mick Kelly, lives in Minneapolis. He's been investigated in the past by the FBI for possible involvement for direct terrorism. He was never charged. But these are radical groups. Same thing with PSL, sympathetic, tied to China. Its members have flown to China. So this is part of something that China directly encourages, wants to see happening, and they are monitoring the situation in the United States as it relates to all kinds of social unrest like this.
They have control over our educational system for so long that they have an army of useful idiots, like those you showed earlier. And this time it's a little bit different. This time, I think what we see in the Minneapolis is almost like a CCP's death squad. Those people, like Alex Treaty, I think they are ready to give their life, put their body on the line and give their life for the cause. And of course, for the Democratic Party, they want to see more of them. They make martyrs of them. That's exactly what the CCP did during their revolution to take over China, and later Mao's Cultural Revolution to take over the CCP for himself to get his absolute power.
Have the so-called Red-Green Alliance, where progressives are teaming up with Islamists. In my book, Laura, I quote Islamists as saying, look, this is a marriage of convenience. As soon as we've won, we're going to get rid of these guys. So, they need to be aware of the full extent of what's going on. These are revolutionaries. These are killers, and they are going to do what they need to seize power.
And they call this, save our democracy. And they call the illegals our neighbors. And they make it look like that the Americans should be on their side. But that's exactly what the communists do, to collect their useful idiots, like Peter said already. I witnessed how those useful idiots were punished later. The peasants that joined the CCP's Red Army and fought for the CCP, half of them starved to death later. And the Red Guards fought for Mao were sent to the gulags after their usefulness is no more. And this is a message I really desperately want to teach.
We will not win any more elections in terms of majorities if we don't pass the SAVE Act, because they bring in all these illegals and they're going to try to get as many of them to vote as they can. Then they have all these voting machines that are all crooked, out of Venezuela, by the way. They have a system that they can win elections. We probably have a dozen or so people up here in the House and the Senate that were elected illegally. You know, we need money for COVID. $2 trillion. Well, what'd they do with that money? They sent it to all the blue states to pay off their debts because they had stolen so much money, they could not function. And we're talking about 30, 40 billion for California, 30, 40 billion for New York. Same thing for Chicago, the cities. I mean, it is a disaster, folks.